Okay, nice to see everybody. Welcome all of our esteemed guests from Orlando and from other places. So, schedule is, we have class now. Of course, today it's going to be class in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Saturday is a Chaitanya Charitamrita day for us. And then after that, we will have greeting the deities. And then after that, probably good. I didn't. And also from the Chicago area, Naperville, which is like a small town outside of Chicago. So after that, we will have Damodar Ashtaka, and after that, we will have prasadam, if that's all right. So Saturday morning, we usually do the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the program today begins at 11 o'clock, sharp, Western Standard Time. Not Indian Standard Time. So. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Gopi Jana Madhava Giri Vadaragote Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Vadaragote Yasodanana Vraja Jananana Yasodanana Vraja Jananana Jamuna Tera Banachari Yamuna Tera Banachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Gopi Jana Madhava Giri Vadaragote Gopi Jana Madhava Giri Vadaragote Yasodanana Vraja Jananana Yasodanana Vraja Jananana Yamuna Tera Madachade Yamuna Tera Madachade Jai Huradu Madhova Kunna Bihagati Joy Radhu Madhova Kunna Bihagati Jabihadi Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravidikacharya also Tela Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Chalanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Marshila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Vidas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopadat Sai Mukunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Maturadam Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Vallabhai Ki Jai Srimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Go Oh, glory is the assembled devotees. Oh, glory is the assembled devotees. Oh, glory is the assembled devotees. Oh, glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nivasesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dejatarni. So you have that's 11th chapter of the month. She gave me the 12th. Yeah, but she... Okay, in the meantime, we'll chant Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Thank you. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. So we are reading from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, actually the beginning of chapter 11 in the Majja Khanda. So what we do is we read and then I comment as we read. We read the chapter summary. What do you usually do? Because usually I don't give this class. What? Okay, whatever you usually do. So, chapter 11 is entitled The Veda Kirtana, Pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur summarizes the 11th chapter in his Amrita Prabhaha Bhasha. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya tried his best to arrange a meeting between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and King Prataparudra, the Lord flatly denied his request. At this time, Sri Ramananda Roy returned from his governmental post and he praised King Prataparudra highly in Lord Chaitanya's presence. Because of this, the Lord became a little soft. The king also made promises to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who hinted how the king might meet the Lord. During Anavasara, while Lord Jagannath was resting for 15 days, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being unable to see Lord Jagannath, went to Alalanatha. Later, when the devotees from Bengal came to see him, he returned to Jagannath Puri. When Advaitacharya and the other devotees were coming to Jagannath Puri, Swarup Damodar and Govinda, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's two personal assistants, went to receive all the devotees with garlands. From the roof of his palace, King Prataparudra could see all the devotees arriving. Gopinathacharya stood on the roof with the king, and following Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's instructions, identified each and every devotee. The king discussed the devotees with Gopinathacharya, and he mentioned that the devotees were accepting prasad without observing the regulated principles governing pilgrimages. They accepted prasadam without having shaved, and they neglected to fast in a holy place. After Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had explained to the king why the devotees had apparently violated the scriptural injunctions for visiting a place of pilgrimage, the king arranged residential quarters for all the devotees and saw to their prasadam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu talked very happily with Vasudev Datta and the other devotees. Haridas Thakur also came, and due to his humble and submissive attitude, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him a nice solitary place near the temple. After this, the Lord began performing Sankirtana, dividing all the devotees into 4 groups. After Sankirtana, all the devotees left for their residential quarters. Okay, and we'll start reading here. So usually you don't do the word-by-word synonyms, or what? They're Bengali. No, okay. So text 1. Achyudandam tandavam Gaurachandra Kurvan Bhaktai Sri Jagannatha Gehe Anana Bhavalankritanga Swadamda Chakre Vishwam Premavanya Nivagnam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu merged the entire world into the ocean of ecstatic love by performing his beautiful dances within the temple of Jagannath. He danced exquisitely and jumped high. Text 2. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Sri Advaita Prabhu, and all glories to all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 3. Aradina Sarvabhauma Kahe Prabhu Stane Abhaya Dana Danayade Kari Nivedane. The next day, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya requested Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give him permission to submit a statement without fear. Prabhu kahe kaha tume na kichu vaya yogya haile kariba ayogya haila naya. The Lord gave the Bhattacharya assurance that he could speak without fear, but added that if his statement were suitable, he would accept it, and if it were not, he would reject it. Text 5. Sarvabhauma kahe e prataparucharaya utkanta hanakche toma mili bare chaya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, "There's a king named Prataparucharaya. He is very anxious to meet you, and he wants your permission. Text 6. Karne hasta Diya Prabhu Smare Narayana Sarvabhoma Kahikena Ayogya Vachana. As soon as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this proposal, he immediately covered his ears with his hands and said, "My dear Sarvabhoma, why are you requesting such an undesirable thing from me?" Text 7. Virakta sannyasi amara raja darashana stri darashana sama vishera vakshana. Since I am in the renounced order, it is as dangerous for me to see a king as to meet a woman. To meet either would be just like drinking poison. So text 8, I'll deal with this confidential subject matter in a second. Niskinjanasya bhagavat bhajanon mukasya param param jigam mishur bhava sagarasya sandarshanam vishayinam ata yoshitam cha ha hanta hanta visha vakshanato Sadhu. Greatly lamenting, the Lord then informs Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, "Alas, for a person who is seriously desiring to cross the material ocean and engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord without material motives. Seeing a materialist engage in sense gratification or seeing a woman who is similarly interested is more abominable than drinking poison willingly." And I'll read the purport, then we'll comment. So purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. This is a quotation from Sri Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka 8.23. Thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enunciates the principles for a sannyasi renouncing the material world for spiritual advancement. Spiritual advancement is not meant for magic shows and jugglery, but for crossing the material world and being transferred to the spiritual world. Param, jigami sho, means desiring to go to the other side of the material world. There's a river named Vaitarani, and on one side of this river is the material world, and on the other side is the spiritual world. Since the Vaitarani river is compared to a great ocean, it is named Bhava Sagara. Bhava, not Baba. Bhava Sagara, the ocean of repeated birth and death. Spiritual life aims at stopping this repetition of birth and death and entering into the spiritual world where one can live eternally cognizant and blissful. Unfortunately, the general populace does not know anything about spiritual life or the spiritual world. The spiritual world is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, 8th chapter, text 20. Parastasmat javavo nyo yakto vyaktat sanatana yaksa sarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsu na vinashyate. Yet there is another unmanifested nature which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. Thus, there is a spiritual nature beyond this material world, and that spiritual nature exists eternally. Spiritual advancement means stopping material activities and entering into spiritual activities. This is the process of bhakti yoga. In the material world, the via media for sense gratification is mainly a woman. And actually for a woman, it's mainly a man. One who is seriously interested in spiritual life should strictly avoid women. A sannyasi should never see a man or woman for material benefit. In addition, talks with materialistic men and women are also dangerous. and they are compared to drinking poison. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very strict on this point. He therefore refused to see King Prataparudra, who was naturally always engaged in political and economic affairs. The Lord even refused to see the king, despite the request of a personality like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was the Lord's intimate friend and devotee. So, I'm going to comment on this. Krishna gave me a little controversial verse here. So, we find in the pastimes of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, that he is dealing equally with people of both genders, or people who have bodies of both genders. And also, Prabhupada is very anxious to speak to political leaders. Whoops. I think I need to turn my phone off for a second. Give me a second. Prabhupada was very anxious to speak to political leaders. I mean, he wanted to see Indira Gandhi. He wanted to see so many other political leaders. So what's happening here? So let's examine the historical context in which the story is told. In this particular context, you have more or less what's called a conservative, for lack of a better word, Vedic understanding, conservative Vedic understanding in India rather than in the Western world. So in the conservative Vedic understanding in India, things were rather ritualistic. And in order to be able to reach people, especially for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna consciousness, he needed to adhere to the even the ritualistic norms, which is really important. Because when we're preaching in a particular place, we have to understand the culture, and we have to adapt our presentation of Krishna consciousness according to time, place, and circumstance. And, Krishna consciousness is adaptable. There are certain principles in Krishna consciousness which are not adaptable. Principles like no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling, no meat eating. And there are other details which are adaptable, such as the type of clothes that you're wearing, such as, how big your Sika is. Like if you go to, it's all right, your Sika's okay. Don't worry. Like if you go to South India, you got these giant Sikas. And then when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas, he shaved off his Sika. He got rid of his Brahman thread. So even Brahman threads, that's a detail. It's not a principle. Because previously, let me explain something. Previously, if one became a Gaudiya Vaishnava, in many cases they would get rid of their Brahman thread, especially if they were not initiated or not from Brahminical families, traditional Brahminical caste families. They wouldn't be given a Brahman thread. So sometimes we see a Brahman thread is something that's, it's a spiritual thread because it's used for Krishna. But we see it as something that's an essential item in Krishna consciousness. I mean, for example, there was an argument given when we were discussing this whole point about Vaishnavi Diksha gurus. It's an interesting argument. How can a Vaishnavi give initiation when she doesn't have a thread? And I made the point, she shouldn't have a thread. So I made the point that basically Lord Chaitanya didn't have a thread either after he took sannyas. And he was certainly initiating people like Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. And for Vaishnava to have a thread is not essential anyway. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur instituted that Vaishnavas were given a thread upon initiation so that people would respect us. In other words, there's adjustments that are made according to time, place, and circumstance. And one has to respect the culture in which one is in. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in a very, very strict ritualistic culture, so strict that even Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami were not permitted to go into the temple of Lord Jagannath. Why weren't they permitted to go into the temple of Lord Jagannath, even in spite of being born in high-class Brahminical families? Because they had accepted employment under the Muslim government, the Nawab Hussain Shah. They'd actually even gotten Muslim names, Dabir Kash and Shakara Malik. And because of that, it was considered they had lost their caste. Even there's that one story about Subhuti Roy. Some of you may know this story from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. That Subhuti Roy, when he was very young, he had an assistant, a young boy who was assisting him. And it was a young boy from a Muslim family. And one time, unfortunately, he hit him and left a little scar on the Muslim boy. And so this Muslim boy grew up and married a Muslim wife. And he became a prominent member of the government there. You know, even in charge. You know, sub-charge somewhere. So he became a prominent member of the government. And then one day, his wife saw his back. And his wife said, "How'd you get that scar?" And he said, "Subhuti Roy hit me one time. And he gave me that scar." And so his wife said, "You got to kill Subhuti Roy for that." And he said, no, he was very nice to me. Otherwise, he was very, very nice. And she says, "Well, at least you got to make him a Muslim." Okay, how to make him a Muslim. It's very easy to make someone a Muslim, at least in those days. You just take some water from a pot that you were drunk out of, if you were Muslim, and you throw it at someone. Or you, actually spitting is the correct method. You put it in your mouth. You've now become a Muslim. And that was the ritual those days. So Subhuti Roy, he was so upset. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I've become a Muslim. And so he started to go to the Brahmins for some ritualistic remedy for this particular problem. And the Brahmanas invariably said to him, the only remedy is you take hot molten metal and you drink it. In this way, you will become a Hindu again. Okay, become a Hindu. Because I don't know if we want to become Hindus. So anyway, so he was thinking, what am I going to do? This is going to kill me. And then he was advised by the devotees, what? Just chant Hare Krishna. I mean, that's how ritualistic that society was. And in certain places in India, it's still that ritualistic. Even if you go to Govardhan, and in Govardhan there's these, the Brajavasis, you know, people lived in Govardhan for many, many years. And they're considered to be of a lower, some of them are considered to be a lower caste. Of course, that's a great offense. If one sees a Vaishnava according to their caste, Acharya, Viganiyam, Avamanyeta, Harichit, Namarcha Yuta, Suyeta, Sarvadeva Mayo Guru, then one has hellish intelligence, or hellish mind. So, anyway, so these Vaishnavas, these Brajavasis, multi-generation, I mean, practically, I guess from the time of Krishna they're there. So they're not permitted to go in many of the temples. You go to Radhakund, they're not permitted to go in these temples. It's amazing, isn't it? That sort of caste discrimination or cultural stuff. And, of course, in every culture, we have different cultural norms. And so we have to be careful wherever we are to adapt those norms, as long as it doesn't mean eating meat or taking intoxication, having illicit sex, or gambling. We have to be really careful to do that. Like when you're in China, you can use Chinese instruments for kirtan. Just like I've seen pictures of the devotees or videos of the devotees in China. They're using Chinese instruments to chant the holy name. And they're using chopsticks to eat with. So one may say, oh, you're not supposed to use chopsticks, you must use your hands. You're going to be so ritualistic. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in one sense, was actually responding to the behavior of that particular society, because he described that if someone sees some fault in a sannyasi, it's like seeing a spot on a white sheet. It'll become very, very prominent. It's very prominent. And then his preaching would not be so fruitful. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very concerned about that. Not that he was against meeting with King Prataparudra, because King Prataparudra was a great devotee. And not that he was against ladies. But we also have to understand that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas in the Bharati Sampradaya, which was a Mayavadi Sampradaya. And in the Mayavadi Sampradaya, there are very, very strict rules about who you can talk to, who you can see, especially when dealing with the opposite gender. I mean, sometimes you even find this in certain Hindu organizations, like the Swami Narayan organization, some of you may be aware of this, that they will not even go in the same room where there's a spirit soul with a lady's body. It's really interesting. Really interesting. And so I'll tell you one story happened in New Zealand. I was shocked hearing this. There was a whole program with government officials and the Swami Narayan people in Auckland. I believe it was Auckland, but anyway, it was New Zealand. So there was a program where they were honoring, some politicians will honor anyone to get votes. They'll even honor the Hare Krishnas. Just like I was watching this film about this investigation about, anyway, New Vrindavan, the way it used to be. And it showed previously there was a sheriff who just looked the other way with all of New Vrindavan stuff that went on years and years ago, not now, because he knew that there were a lot of votes in New Vrindavan. So politicians are like that. So anyway, so these particular politicians in New Zealand were hosting a whole program for the Swami Narayan people. I guess it might have even been the prime minister, but some prominent politician. And so the Swami Narayan people, they said, well, we'd like to have one of our Swamis talk too. And to have one of our Swamis talk, all you lady politicians have to leave the room. I mean, no comment. Anyway, so, that's a misapplication. It's a misapplication of whatever their philosophy is, or maybe it's an application of their philosophy, whatever their philosophy is. But in any case, it wasn't so intelligent, and so they sort of burnt out, especially in New Zealand, where basically they are very liberal. I mean, America is becoming more and more conservative, and New Zealand is becoming more and more liberal. So anyway, so people follow these rituals not understanding the culture that they're dealing with. And so Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu perfectly understood the culture. Therefore, he didn't force the temple to accept Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis. He didn't force the temple to accept Haridas Thakur. I mean, these were great, absolutely pure devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu adhered to the cultural norm. So, and Srila Prabhupada, on the other hand, didn't have to worry about too many cultural norms in America. you know, I mean, we have a culture, which just means an unculture in America. Just like they have, there's a soda called the Uncola. So we have the I'm not going to mention what soda that is. So we have the unculture in America, or mixed cultures in America. So Prabhupada didn't have to worry about that. So he took the very essence of Krishna consciousness, and Prabhupada never saw anybody and anybody according to their gender. Prabhupada saw them as spirit souls who had forgotten Krishna. As soon as we apply a designation on someone, that's when we're in Maya. As soon as we see there's a man, there's a woman, you know, what Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Gavihastini, Shuni Chaiva Swapakicha, Pandita Samadarshana. It says a learned devotee has seen a Brahman, a dog eater, all these different personalities as equal. Samadarshi. So then, at that particular point, we're in Maya, because when we see, according to the upadi or designation, and then we see ourselves as the enjoyer, then everybody and everything becomes an object of enjoyment. And everything and everybody becomes a cause of our deviation from Krishna consciousness. That's the point. You know, so speaking like in a philosophical way, like we think that we're Purushas, and the women also think that they're Purushas. That doesn't mean they think they're males and they're going to do some gender changing. That means they think that they're the enjoyers. And I'm thinking I'm the enjoyer, and you're thinking, all of you are thinking you're the enjoyers, so that whoever you look at, you're trying to enjoy. You know, we may exploit men in a different way than we exploit women, but still, it's the same thing. Because you're seeing everyone as Prakriti, even the men. Prakriti means, you know, female or energy or something to be enjoyed. You see, everything is something to be enjoyed. And if you have the consciousness that Krishna is the enjoyer, Ishavashamidam sarvam yadkancha jagajam jagat dena chiktena munjana magridha kashasvidyanam, then basically you want to identify yourself as Prakriti, everybody else is Prakriti, and everybody else is spirit soul, and everybody else is either an object of compassion or an object of friendship or an object of service, then all these particular injunctions don't apply. That's all. But otherwise, we're in a mood, or we're in the consciousness of always trying to exploit things and exploit people. And so therefore, the most attractive form of exploitation, sorry about this, is the man-woman exploitation. I mean, that's the most attractive thing in this world. What can we say? As the song goes, love makes the world go round. Makes the world go round. And Prabhupada was fond of quoting English economists, you know, that economic development is due to the attraction between men and women. Because if there wasn't marriage, nobody would work a job, or very few people would work a job. Right? I mean, all these houses, developments, and everything like that are because the attraction between men and women. However, that attraction even can be dovetailed in Krishna's service. That's yukta vairagya. It's not necessarily illusion. If that attraction is used in Krishna's service according to the rules and regulations, not outside the rules and regulations or in violation of the rules and regulations, but it can be used, and that's why we have Krishna conscious grahastha life. And in Krishna conscious grahastha life, the wife can love the husband, and the husband can love the wife, and they both love Krishna, and they both cooperate together in serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there's no problem with that. However, if one is not a grahastha, they have to be very, very careful, whether they're sannyasis or whether they're brahmacharis or vanaprasthas or even grahasthas dealing with other ladies or ladies dealing with other men, because it is the most bewildering, attractive feature for most people. For some people, it's their mobile phone. But, I mean, for others like me, it's electronics and things like that, and physics and biology. So anyway, but seriously, for most people, it is actually the most attractive feature. And it bewilders one if one is not careful. So that's why these particular injunctions are there. But if one has the right consciousness, but still one has to be careful. Just like I, as a sannyasi, or someone who's trying to be a sannyasi, somehow or other, I do not meet alone with ladies. It's just like, even though, it's not something that I think about, but still it sets an example. In ISKCON, we should stick with this particular standard, that men should not meet alone with a lady who's not his wife, and ladies should not meet alone with a husband, with a man, can meet with a husband. You should not meet alone with a man who's not their husband. Practical stuff. Because Maya is strong. Like Prabhupada gives the example of what? Fire and butter. And so we don't need a lot of people melting. So there has to be this caution in the dealings between men and women, that's all. Very simple thing like that, because there is bewilderment. So this is what is being pointed out here. So generally, Lord Chaitanya was reacting to this particular situation because he was concerned with social pressure. Not like in Indian culture, people are just so concerned with reputation. It wasn't the same thing. Just like I run into people from India all the time, I can't join the Hare Krishna movement because my mother's reputation will be finished if I join the Hare Krishna movement. You run into this all the time. Or, like my mother, she was so concerned with her reputation. I also come from an Indian family, Jewish Indian. So she was so concerned with her reputation, she didn't admit that I had joined the Hare Krishna movement for 10 years after I joined the Hare Krishna movement. She told everyone I'd gone to Israel to join a kibbutz. Which I'd never been in Israel my whole life, and after this war, I don't plan on going. So basically, but he was concerned with reputation for preaching. Otherwise, the devotee's not concerned with reputation. Just like Lord Rishabhadev, when he did this Jata Yoga thing, he just acted like dumb and Jad Bharata to avoid being put into a situation, Maya situation, like he previously experienced. He acted like he was dumb. Jada Bharata. Lord Rishabhadev did the same thing. Because he's not concerned with the reputation. Otherwise, a devotee is not concerned. Yeah. But for the purpose of helping others, for compassion, a devotee is concerned with reputation. That's all. And so we have to also be concerned with our reputation. Also, that involves how we run the Krishna consciousness movement. That we have to be very concerned with how the public sees our movement. I mean, sometimes devotees, they will go out in public and act in such ways that are weird. Whoops. Oh, sorry about this. Or they may do things, they think that they can do illegal things in the name of Krishna consciousness. But Prabhupada said, quoting from Shakespeare, Caesar's wife should be above suspicion. That means devotees should always be concerned with how people see us. So reputation is important for preaching. Anyway, so these are, I mean, I could go on forever about this particular verse, but there's a lot of things we could learn from it. Thank you very much. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Nandar Agom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalem Priya Priti Manti Vasyan Vivan Vikayanti Jiram Naganti Ananda Maya Sadhu Jala Vikrasa Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham
Yanta to Yuchadu Ya. Rudantamurnetra Yugmam Prijantam Karamboja Jugmena Sakantanetram Shasha Kambatre Ray Kanka Kanta Dita Graivam Damodaram Bhakti Padam Iti Raksa Lila Bear Ananda Kundeke Swagosham Nibajantam Akyapayantam Dadi Sheta Getsu Mata de Tagatam Unak Prematos Tam Shatavriti Vande Varam Devam Moksham Na Mokshavatim Vaga Nachanya Prene Amvareshat Abhiha Idam Tema Purnata Gopala Balagam Sadame Manasyavi Rastam Gimanjay Idante Mukammosham Ajantani Lai Ritam Kuntalai Snigda Ratai Shagopya Muhustumbitam bimba Raktadadam Anasyavirastam Alam Lakshalabai Namo Devat Damodar Ananta Vishnu Rasida Prabhu Dukkha Jalapidmarnam Kripa drishti vristati dinam batanu Granasamam magyame yakshi drisha Guverat Batjalbada Mujjaiva Jalvagat Vayot Muchita Bhakti Vajokritocha Mujjaiva Yagat Jata prema bhaktim sma kame prayagacha mukshigara omesti damodareya Namaste studam nesporadipsidam nehe Twadi hotorayata vishvachadam ne Radiptidam nehe Namo Radhikaya Tva Jya Priyaya Hiki Namo Nanchalilaya Devaya Tubhyam Namo Radhikaya Tva Jya Priyaya Namo Nanchalilaya Devaya Namam Vishwaram Jatchit Anandrupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Vrajamanam Yasodameya Lokalan Tavamanakam Paramishtam Majanta Doruchagopya Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. Jaya Radha Goloka Nanda Radha Goloka Nanda Radha Jaya Radha Damodara Radha, Damodara Pragode. Jai Radha, Golokananda Radha, Golokananda Pragode. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Radhe Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Sri Radhe. Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa Paravidikacharya, all Siddhata, Satashi Shimad, his Divine Grace Abhaya Chalananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sayam Kund Radha Kunda Giriyo Vardhani Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Machuranam Ki Jai, Jagadasam. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay, so we'll read the translation. To the Supreme Controller, who possesses an eternal form of blissful knowledge, whose glistening earrings swing to and fro, who manifested himself in Gokula, who stole the butter that the gopis kept hanging from the rafters of their storerooms, and who then quickly jumped up and ran in retreat in fear of Radha Yashoda, what was ultimately caught. To that Supreme Lord Sri Damodar, offered by humble obeisances. Upon seeing his mother's whipping stick, he cried and rubbed his eyes again and again with his two lotus hands. His eyes were fearful and his breathing quick. And as Mother Yashoda bound his belly with ropes, he shivered in fright and his pearl necklace shook. To the Supreme Lord Sri Damodar, who was bound by his devotees' love, I offer my humble obeisances. Those super excellent pastimes of Lord Krishna's babyhood